Good afternoon, everyone. Hey, so I'll just tell you guys very quickly, like Dhruv has already mentioned, I'm Anson Miranda, and I'm the product manager for Flock. We basically come from the DirectI group of companies, and we've built several successful businesses. Our CEOs are young entrepreneurs. They're 38 now, I think, and worth $1.4 billion. So we know a lot about starting stuff from the ground up and making sure we hit the pinnacle of success. I'd like to, in this talk, walk you guys through the product building culture that we've got at DirectI. It's something we apply to all our businesses, to all our products. It's something that you should be applying to your business. Can I see with a show of hands how many people in the room are working on a new software product? If you're an entrepreneur or you're building tech or design or anything. Yeah, a little higher, the lights are in my face. Thank you so much. So I hope that you guys have perspective on what we do, and I'd like to share that with you today. The most important thing is validating your product idea early on. The earlier you can do it, the better it is for you and for everybody around you. It's very important that you understand why you need your product idea, who is it for, and the problem that it's solving. Let me actually tell you guys examples even from our own companies. Right? We sometimes get carried away with a great idea, and a lot of people have great ideas, but sometimes you don't do the due diligence you need to basically ratify why you need that idea. Will the user actually buy into that idea? Will he buy into that product, buy into that solution? You're just so carried away with your first fantastic idea, and the question you're generally asking is, how do I get this done? Right? That's one way to do it, but the way we recommend is you kind of put yourself into these shoes and imagine like somebody else has come to you with that idea. Right? If you do that, then you'll probably ask, is that the right idea? Why do I need that product? Is this the right solution? Is that the right user to target? Is this market right for me? Once you ask these questions, you're basically on the right method to validating your product idea. It's very important for all the effort you're going to put in, for all the time you're going to spend, for the money, for the connections you're going to, put the product to investors, to consumers, all of those things. All of it is very, very important to get right, which is why it's really important to either validate or invalidate those assumptions early on. The sooner, the better. And it's important to either pivot fast or fail fast. Or, of course, if you're getting it right, then you have time with you if it's going to be successful. But if by chance some of those assumptions are wrong, if the market isn't right, if the value proposition isn't right, it's important to fail fast so that you can then take your energy, your idea, and you put it in the next idea that will actually work, right? I'm going to talk about some of the things, the concepts we use. Some of them are very simple. So the question is, what concepts do we use to validate these product ideas? Minimum viable product. As the words itself say, it's a really simple concept, right? It's basically, if you read what's up, the most important part is just those features and no more, right? Sometimes as product people, as design people, we always want to do that little bit extra. As technology people, we want to solve that slightly more complex problem and, architect it that way. None of that stuff counts. If you're taking the right value proposition to your customer, that is far, far more important than building a complicated product, than doing something that you think is really, really important. So minimum viable product is one of the most fundamental concepts product people and young entrepreneurs should use while you're building your product. If you take a look at this diagram, you'll see that the diagram on the left, a lot of people think that they could basically build the smallest slice of their product, right? What we call minimum viable product, as the most functional slice of the product. While that can be helpful, that's not the best thing to do. We recommend that you basically build something that's functional, something that's reliable, right? In software terms, it probably should be bug-free. Something that's usable, right? Something that's design-friendly, and something that's emotional, something that your users can connect to, something that they're delighted with, right? As you can see, that thin slice, it's tapering to the top. So, of course, majority of your product, of your minimum viable product, is going to be functional, but also reliable, usable, and connecting to your users at an emotional level. The next thing we do, again, for those who remember the first thing, what was the first thing? Yeah, it's minimum viable product. The first concept, we're saying why should we, what tools do we use to validate or invalidate our product ideas? And the first thing we're saying is minimum viable product. The second thing is product market fit, right? Sometimes, and in fact, if you've seen great companies, they're generally ahead of the curve, right? Take Microsoft, for examples. They have several products that are far ahead of the curve. They had Surface long before there were tablets, okay? And before the iPad came along and created this revolution, they had Surface. They, in fact, had the idea of smartphones long before the iPhone came along. They just didn't think that everyone would pay so much to get a device, and probably that everybody on the planet would need such a device one fine day. They had the right product, but they didn't get the product market fit aspect correct. So product market fit is a very simple concept. It's being in the right market with the right product, right? It's making sure that you solve the right problem for the right audience. You can be solving the right problem sometimes for the wrong audience. Sometimes you have the right audience, but you don't have the right product or the right solution. So this is the second concept that I think is really, really important when you're basically validating your product ideas. So these two concepts, the question is, how do you attain minimum viable product and product market fit? Right? I'll walk you guys through some points that we use ourselves internally when we build products at work. You need to have a very strong hypothesis. You probably have a great idea, at least to you, right? Initially, all ideas are probably great to you. And then you need to solidify that. You need to build upon that with a strong hypothesis for your product, right? Simple questions like, how, what does my user have for breakfast every morning, right? Where would he hang out? What would she wear? Simple things like that, so that you're sure you understand the persona of the user. You're designing something for somebody. Imagine if I made the world's most fantastic steak for my guest, only to find out he's a vegetarian. That's not a great place to be. So it's really important to have a very strong hypothesis of what your product will look like, what it will do, how it will behave, and who your user is. This point, mind you, however simple it is, sometimes we don't do it because we think our product is meant for everybody. Of course, hopefully it should be that way, but it's very important to pick out a niche, to pick out a target audience that we think will really resonate with the product, with the problem that you're trying to solve. This step, mind you, is cost-free. It doesn't cost you a dime to do this correctly. The second step, again, mostly free, depending how you're doing it. You take your problem, okay? You go to the users that you've identified in your hypothesis, and you ask them how they solve that problem currently. Today, maybe they do something that you think you've assumed that's a problem, but they're working around it in some totally different way. Maybe they don't even realize it's a problem. So it's important to take it to those users, identify them, like physically in one-on-one conversations, and try and figure out exactly what it is they do to solve those problems. These are user interviews where you'll get a lot of learning in terms of what people are doing and in terms of how they can potentially respond to your product. Once you get these, once you understand what they have to say, that takes you to the next step in the process. which is basically conducting usability tests. So in the software world, what we'll do is we'll go back after a user interviews and we try and design mock-ups. We'll try and design exactly the flow that the user would go through, right? Screen 1, screen 2, screen 3, screen 4, and then maybe he signed up, maybe then he does the next thing, and then the next thing. So we'll have out all these flows. And what we do is, once we have those designs, we actually take them back to the user and we vet them with that user again. It's really important to do that so that, again, you're not building the steak for the vegetarian guy. Sometimes, take Snapchat, for example. It's got complex features that, they kind of have this novelty and the snob value if you actually know how to use them. And that's what makes it popular with the young audience. If you give Snapchat to, your dad, for example, he perhaps might not know how to best use it. But still, Snapchat is achieving the purpose for which it was created. So it's very important to know your audience and to figure out whether they will be able to figure out your product. With these tests, right, you can then validate, again, some of those assumptions, saying, okay, this is how he will use my product, this is what he will do, does he know where to go? All of those questions will be answered when you're watching and analyzing the results of these tests. Once you've done that, now you already have a concrete understanding of what the problem is, what the user looks like, and what your potential solutions should look like. And that's where you're basically going to build your product. When you build your product, a very important aspect of building your product is making sure you have analytics in your product. Again, when you build a product, you want to make sure you know what your users are doing, and you can then tweak and learn from the learnings that you have, right? So suppose, for example, Instagram. When Instagram started off, they weren't, the photo sharing service specialized with filters. They just happened to realize that everybody, the filter service was such a popular hit with users that they made that the USP of their app. So a small pivot. Again, they wouldn't be able to do that if they weren't tracking all the data that was happening in their app. Sometimes we've built products, we put it out there, but we're not diligent enough to refine it because we're probably involved with user acquisition related activities and things like that, running operations, a whole bunch of things. So this is a very, very crucial aspect of learning from within your app things that people are doing. So the whole process is pretty simple. You basically, once you have your idea, you will build it, you code it, and once you've coded it, you'll basically track stuff that's going on within your app. That will enable you with rich learnings to then perform that iterative circle time and again. For example, in Flock, we basically have these to-dos. We were trying to share the problem we were trying to solve the problem of shared to-dos within a group. So we've seen a bunch of task management software, and none of those things were basically taking off within the team. People would sometimes do their tasks, sometimes not do their tasks, sometimes do them and not update them. And then we said, we've got this software with all the groups that we need, right? So there are project-specific groups, department-specific groups, and we could easily have our to-do lists inside of those groups. So one, there's always visibility, and two, as those are being updated, people are getting updates. So we said, okay, we now want to build the most awesome to-do app within and on top of Flock. And that's when we remind ourselves of some of these concepts. We say, okay, before we have the whole 9 yards on to-do, some fantastic swipe to delete and voice creation and all of these things. So let's build the most simplistic to-do app possible. I can just create to-dos. I can't even put due dates. I can't assign them to anybody. I can just create shared to-dos within a group. And then we basically watched how those features get adopted. And as they do, we then now add features onto them. We will then add the due date capability, the assignment capability. We'll allow you to create lists and organize all of those lists. So it's this incremental approach to having the right idea, building that idea out, watching its adoption, and tweaking that as we go along, right? That's basically all the steps we just discussed. One other important thing is all the people that you basically took your app to, or you took your idea to, right? They help you ratify it in a user interview. They helped you ratify it when you show them your mock-up or your prototype. Those guys are now your potential customers. It's important to take it to them and to actually try and see what their feedback is. Have you created enough value, enough interest for them to actually use it? Is it actually solving a concrete need? And once those questions are answered, you're then in a much, much better state to know whether the app or the product is going to be successful or not. So one other thing you need to know is when you're growth hacking, right? Once your app is ready, it's going to be doing a bunch of things. It's once operations start taking off, you're going to get all busy. But it's very important to know that you need to start optimizing from the leftmost part of the customer's life cycle. So you need to fix acquisition problems before you fix, say, monetization, for example. You need to fix an engagement problem before you fix, for example, renewal or some billing issue that could come out much, much later. Very obvious things like these is we've seen many people do it wrong. Somebody is busy growing their business and trying to achieve scale when the basic most onboarding flow isn't correct. Simple things like these will drive away customers from your business, and it'll make it seem like they don't care. So if you need to know where to look, it's very important that you at all points in time remember some of these most fundamental steps. That's basically what I have for you today.